All right, I think we can start the webinar. First of all, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anil, and I represent a company called CyberCube. Along with me, I have Pratik, who is the co-host, the speaker of the uh, uh, today's, and then Megha is there, and Virasat is there. They are also the co-host with us, who would be operating along with us to help you out. Uh,
Hi everyone,
so,
good morning. Hi, thank you for joining in. I can see a good amount of participants that we already have, and there are people from various regions. So, good morning and good afternoon with respect to the timing.
All right. In the interest of time, the way we have planned this webinar is we will be, walking through you with the PCI DSS and the key concept of PCI DSS. During the presentation, if you have any doubt, you can raise your hand or you can post your questions to us, and then we'll take it up during our session as and when it is required. We'll be taking the Q&A at the end of the session as well. So I think we can proceed, Pratik.
Perfect.
Thank you. So about myself and Pratik is also there with me. So I hold an experience of almost more than a decade, specifically into the payment industry. I have been a QSA for more than 10 years, and I've been assessing a lot of companies across the globe within various industries like BFSI sector, payment sectors, manufacturing, e-commerce. So, all in all, I have done more than 300 odd PCI DSS assessments, which include gap assessment, final audit, working on ROCs, AOCs, and other documents. Apart from PCI DSS, I also have experience in implementing and auditing various standards like ISO 27001, HIPAA, GDPR, and we are also I have hands-on experience in PCI SSF as we also are a PCI SSF company. I would let Pratik introduce himself for the day. Pratik, over to you.
Thank you, Anil. Hi everyone. My name is Pratik Rathi. As Anil said, we both represent CyberCube Services, and we are the speakers for the day. So, a little bit about myself. I'm a PCI QSA for the PCI DSS standard. Along with that, I have an intensive experience in other information security domains and compliances such as ISO 27001, ISO 22301 for and ISO 27701 for privacy as well. So I have almost an experience of about 7 years as of now, and have been trying to make sure that the industry is always kept up to the date. My own experience says that every day there comes a new thing, and that's what the webinar is also about. That every day there is something new evolving in the environment. So we usually try to make sure that we are up to date as well as the industry and the people and the folks that are around us are also up to date. So,
All right.
moving on to the next segment, Anil, over to
Sure.
you, please.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Pratik. So I'll just quickly take a couple of minutes to introduce CyberCube. So we are a cybersecurity company, and we provide a variety of services, specifically into compliance and technical consulting. As you all know, that we are a PCI QSA company, and we are providing PCI DSS assessments and certification services to the various clients. Along with that, we also support our clients in various standards, like we help our client getting implement ISO 27001. We do various assessments with our client, which is totally specific to GDPR, SOC, and any other compliance under the umbrella of information security. That's something which we do day in and day out. And in terms of technical field and technical assessments, we provide various services like VAPT, red teaming, configuration assessments, various testings related to source code review, and so on and so forth. We have the local presence in India. We are headquartered in India, and we have our office in UAE and Dubai as well. Currently, in terms of the experience, we started our operations in 2018. And since then, we are clocking somewhere around 700 plus customers, which include mostly all of the industries, not, I mean, from BFSI sector and then financial sector, excuse me, and e-commerce sector, technology sectors, manufacturing sector. So, whatever service we offer to our client, I mean, these services are scattered across various customers of ours. Currently, our presence in terms of customer, we have almost 40 plus countries where we have our customers. Uh, I think this is more about ourselves and the company. Before I think we move on to the next slide, I think I'll have a very quick poll just to understand the audience, what kind of people have joined us so that we can pace our uh, session accordingly. So it's a very simple question. How familiar are you with PCI DSS? I think you would have the poll with in front of you. We would appreciate if you can answer that. All right, I think we have almost 50% result. Good. I think we have 60% of participant who has responded. Uh, yeah, I think we can share the result amongst the group. All right. I think there are a lot of people who are well versed with PCI DSS. I'll just share the result. Yes, I think 21% are well versed with PCI DSS. So I'm assuming either they are a QSA auditor or they have worked in PCI DSS domain. We have 24% who have either participated in as an auditor or auditing team. And obviously, I think mostly we have people, 41% who have read about it. So I think it's going to be an interesting session. We would be having a lot of discussion around the topic. So I'll just close this poll. All right. Can we move on to next slide, Pratik?
Sure.
All right. So I'll just walk you through the fundamental concepts of PCI DSS, and then Pratik will take it over with PCI DSS 3.0 and 4.0.1, and he'll explain about the nitty-gritties of the standard. But I'll just walk you through what exactly PCI DSS is, why it is required, and what are the key components of the PCI DSS. So uh, to start with PCI DSS, it started as early as in 90s, where there was payment brands like Visa, Mastercard, JCB, and Amex. They used to have their own risk management process, where in terms of any if there was any fraud within the company, they used to respond to those frauds and risk according to their standard, which they had built. But then, since the fraud increased and they started operating, they found out that this problem is very common with all the payment brands. So they decided that if the problem is common, the solution should also be common. So what these guys did, they built a consortium with the name of PCI, and they came up with a standard which was then called the DSS standard, which was Data Security Standard, and we name it nowadays as PCI DSS. So they came up with the DSS standard, and the same standard was used by them along all the brands. So whenever there was any fraud, they started using this common standard. So they initially, when this started, it contained basically very specific things like safeguarding the credit card data and how various risks available and prevalent in the environment of a company. So those kind of things started operating, and then they started revising the standard as the technology started evolving. So currently, as you guys are having this webinar, we are currently reviewing the standard PCI DSS 4.0.1, but it started altogether from PCI DSS 1.0. In terms of basically what formulated the the standards itself generally covers nowadays that in an environment how the network protects the entire cardholder data, how the cardholder data is protected, specifically in terms of implementing various controls related to encryption, logging mechanism, and implementing some you know latest controls related to firewall, and then doing a continuous testing around all of these controls so that the controls are there in place in the environment. So this is in a sense the DSS standard generally comprise of. Now, basically, one of the questions which generally arises is what is the eligibility of PCI DSS? I mean, I've been doing this audit for quite a long now, and the applicability varies. But in a simple term, as the council has laid out, PCI council has laid out, they are saying that any entity which either store, process, or transmit cardholder data. Now, when I'm referring cardholder data, it is the entire content of the cardholder data, which is like the PAN number, the name of the person, and the other details related to expiry date. These are categorized as cardholder data. So anything, any cardholder data which is either processed, store, and transmit. Now, processing is something. I mean, if you see that the issuer bank is there, acquiring bank is there, they are taking the card data and they are doing some kind of processing, or they are processing the payment for on behalf of any entity. This is called processing. Storing is maybe you are into e-commerce domain, or maybe you are into some other industry where you require that the CSD, the cardholder data has to be stored within the system for maybe for any reason, like printing it on a specific report, or maybe presenting it to some other service provider. So if the storing is done, then also the PCI DSS is applicable. And in terms of if you're not storing as well, if you're not processing, if you're just only transmitting the data, let's suppose if a transaction is routed from bank to the payment gateway, and in between the merchant is there. So if you're just transmitting and you are maybe a bypass node around that, then also you are eligible for PCI DSS. So in short, if any of the three is applicable, if you're processing as well, if you are not storing, or if you're transmitting, you are eligible for PCI DSS, and you have to go for PCI DSS. Now, when I say you have to go for it, totally depends whether your payment brand or acquiring bank asks for it. If it is asked, then obviously it's a regulatory compliance, and then you'll have to go for it. Now, in terms of when PCI DSS, there are specific levels. So one of the key terms when we speak about PCI DSS is called merchants and service provider. Now, merchants are one of the last node in the payment cycle. So merchant can be an e-commerce merchant who is subsequently associated with the service provider or the bank directly. So if a merchant is processing number of transaction in an year, which is more than 6 million, then they have to go for the level 1 PCI DSS certification. So as I mentioned levels, so there are different levels of PCI DSS compliances. It starts from level one and then level two, level three, level four. Level four is the least level wherein a merchant might be just doing a transaction of 10,000 and 20,000. And if at all you are a merchant and you are doing more than 6 million number of transaction, uh, the direct eligibility is level one. And then level one is a kind of certification where the entire DSS standard is applicable, and then we do all the control verification around that. Now, these level are also defined by various acquiring bank. It is not that a merchant can decide that either I am on a level one or level two. If a merchant is associated with a bank, bank will decide the level. And PCI has actually given the different level definition. We will share it with you. It is easily available public information on PCI DSS website. So Visa has a different level, level one, level two, level three, level four, and then JCB, Amex, Mastercard has a different level. So according to the level, the eligibility might vary. So as I mentioned, for level one, the merchant or service provider has to go for the final level one certification, which is done by PCI QSA. And then the level two and level four till level four, it is an SAQ level wherein a self-assessment questionnaire can be filled up by the merchant, and they can provide their compliance towards towards the SAQ. And then again, it depends upon the company and the acquired bank to define that whether a QSA is needed to attest the SAQ or not. But generally, if level four is there, SAQ, self-attested SAQ, would be more than enough. So this is all about PCI DSS and the related entities. One of the thing and one of the question which generally arise, and I think I'll take an help of Pratik here. Pratik, I talked about that processing is there and storing and transmitting is there. But in terms, let's suppose if a customer or merchant is there, which is doing neither of them, neither he's processing or storing or transmitting. What do you think? So, what can be done? Will that client or the merchant would be applicable for PCI DSS?
See, yeah, I mean, a very valid question, to be honest. This question I see on a day-to-day scenario as well. The it totally depends, and the dependence is upon the scope of what exactly are the services. So I'll take an example to explain it a bit better. Now, let's say if an entity is providing services and the services does not include by business, they do not, for their own business, they do not store, process, or transmit. But the services are in such a way that the card data or the CDE, the CHD might land into their environment. So, for an example, we can take cloud service providers. Now, the cloud service providers, as a business for themselves, the services that they offer, that service by itself doesn't process, transmit, or store any data, but their services are being used by their customers, which can be merchants, which can be service providers. They specifically absorb their services in such a way that even the cloud service provider also have to attain the PCI DSS certification. So in this particular example that I took of a cloud service provider, requirement 9 talks about physical security. Now, the physical security is one of the domains. Of course, it's a cloud environment. If I am using a cloud environment and I am processing the data, I cannot validate the physical security. It's the responsibility of my service provider. So that particular service provider also will fall in for PCI DSS.
Absolutely. Thanks. That's valuable information, Pratik. I think one of the thing which I would also add, there are certain cases where the merchant or service provider, they're not doing any of them, but then since they are into the ecosystem of payment cycle, they have to be they are regulated by bank, and then these banks, since they are using either their application or resources in their environment, they generally ask them to get the PCI DSS certification. Since PCI DSS certification is very specific in terms of specific control has to be implemented. There is no way you can say that the plan is there to implement a particular control. Hence, it's one of the stringent standard within the globe as of now in terms of information security. So I think the banks and the other service provider generally globally accept it, and it's one of the great standard with in terms of information security and security of cardholder data. All right. I
Absolutely.
think, yeah, we can move to next. Right. So now we have talked about the eligibility, the criteria, and what is PCI DSS. One of the question comes up like if you are not eligible as well, or if you're eligible, why do you choose PCI DSS as a standard? So one of the thing which I have already mentioned that it's a very specific standard and it contains a lot of critical details and lot of stringent control within the information security domain. The other thing is, since it's an ecosystem, a particular merchant or service provider might be connected to bank or any other subsequent service provider. Any service provider bank would not want any kind of vulnerability or when any kind of weakness within their system just because they are associated with a merchant who is not well versed with security, or there is a weakness in the system and they have not tested. So it is a great way to implement the security within the system and safeguard the technology. PCI DSS, it's not only about the cardholder, but then it also secures a lot of other parameters within the environment. So that is one of the thing. And as I mentioned that PCI DSS is industry-wide reputed standard. So once organization is certified with PCI DSS, they will have a proper reputation that we can go to the various clients or their customer and say that we want to provide you the service and we have these compliances, or PCI DSS is one of them. So they will obviously have one of the thing and they'll be regarded that the merchant is actually serious about the security. Obviously, I mean, since it's into the payment industry, then compliance and regulation becomes one of the critical factor. Within specifically, if I talk about India, and PCI is there, they generally talk about getting the PCI DSS certification, or at least making sure that the security of the cardholder is protected. So this is more about why PCI DSS. I'll just let's move on to the slide.
Sure.
All right. So I mentioned about payment process a lot of time in terms of service provider and merchant. So we'll just quickly take a look on what is this payment process, what are the key components. So this is a typical card which I think most of us would have and we are using it for day-to-day transactions. So there are varieties of card, but nowadays we have the chip ingrained in that. So this is called EMV card generally. And then if you will see the back stripe at the back of the card, it is a magnetic stripe which contain very confidential data of the card, which includes the entire cardholder data, the service code, and other critical details. And then we have verification code at the back of card. Sometime it is there at the front of card, depend upon what brands you're using. Like in Amex, you will generally get it on the front of card, and then at the back, other Visa, Mastercards supports it at the back. So you will see on this diagram and the picture, there is a lot of critical data. Now, cardholder data is one of the critical data, and that has to be obviously protected as per PCI DSS is concerned. Then there is the other critical data which might not be available with the naked eyes, but then one of the important and critical data is CVV for sure. So we'll just quickly have a look how what are the key components you are allowed to store as per PCI DSS, and you can store it, or what are the components which you cannot store at all, be it for any use. So I'll just this table actually depict what is allowed to store and what is not allowed to store. So on the left of the table, you'll see cardholder data. I mean, as a merchant or a service provider, you can obviously store or showcase PAN number, cardholder data, expiration date, and service code. This is totally allowed. However, it has to be encrypted, or there has to be a secure manner where it is rendered unreadable, or it is secured in a manner that it cannot be fetched out and in the clear text. So the cardholder data is totally allowed to store, provided the entire controls are implemented. Then we have sensitive authentication data. Since, as the name suggests, it is very sensitive in nature, any merchant, any service provider cannot store these data in either in database or in the disk, and in any format it is not allowed. The only exception here is if you are a issuer bank, or if you're supporting a function wherein, or maybe you are into a specific domain where your services are designed to cater to the issuer function, then and then only you can store the sensitive authentication data. But apart from that, in no circumstances, in anywhere in the system or the environment, the sensitive data cannot be stored. So this is more about the card and the account data, how it is stored and what should be stored. I'll just quickly walk you through how the payment cycle works. So generally we do these transaction day in and day out. We go to merchant outlet, and we do a lot of shopping. So I one might wonder what exactly happens at the back end. So this is a very quick process wherein we can just see how generally the entire process works. So if you see, when you go to a merchant, you do shopping, and once you put your card on the POS machine, or if there is a kiosk as a self help kiosk, you enter the entire credentials, and then you do the pay click on do the pay now, and do the transaction. The transaction first of all goes to acquirer bank. Now, acquirer bank is a bank which is directly associated with merchant, and they provide the service of payment transaction to merchant. Sometimes acquirer bank is also known as merchant bank, and in industry we use this very interchangeably, either acquirer bank or merchant bank. Once acquire bank have this transaction, acquirer bank generally sees whether the transaction comes from their own bank, or is there any other bank who is responsible for the card. So whatever, I mean, the bank who have issued the card generally referred to as an issuing bank, and we also called as call them issuer. Once the acquirer has identified it, it generally sends the payment link or payment transaction to either payment bank or payment brand networks, wherein some service provider are also associated. So this transaction then identify which is the issuer bank, and then the transaction is then routed to the issuing bank. Then the end role of the issuing bank is to see if it's a credit card or debit card. If it's a credit card, the issuing bank will check that whether the transaction or the cardholder data, sorry, the account, the credit limit of the cardholder person, does it allow the transaction or not? If the credit limit allows the transaction to be happen, then issuer will actually give a response to merchant via payment brand network that the transaction is approved. If at all, if there is no sufficient fund, or the credit limit is not there, then the issuing bank will disapprove the transaction, and then the entire transaction won't happen. So this is overall process of authorization. In this entire process, or if the diagram, you will see the merchant is also eligible and qualifies for PCI DSS certification. Acquirer and issuing bank, since they are into payment cycle, they receive and send a lot of credit card data, account data to each other. They are also one of the prime party where the PCI DSS is applicable. And then, not to mention the payment brand network, wherein any service provider or any switching network comes into place, they have to be PCI DSS certified. So this is more of a process and authorization from the PCI DSS point of view. Yeah. So now in terms of versioning, as I mentioned, yeah, Pratik, can we move?
Sorry, sorry, my
Yeah,
bad.
sure. No problem. So, in terms of versioning, as I mentioned, that the entire DSL standard have started from 1.0. And then, as the technology evolved, there was a lot of changes in the standard to support, NFCs payment and chip and pin keys payments. Uh, Yeah. In terms of the standard, when one of the major changes appeared in 3.0, uh, wherein they included a lot of details related to auditor and the auditing organization. So the 3.0 included things related to making sure that the ASVs are done on timely manners, and yeah, the most important part was the detailing of the standard was improvised and improved a lot, because on PCI DSS 3.0 they started getting the details of the merchant in a way that whoever, as an auditor, we are auditing, we have to input all the details, and specifically the system which we are testing, we have to include all the details related to that. And specifically in terms of the configuration which we have assessed in the system, router or firewall, that was also the critical part of that. From PCI DSS 3.0, one of the version which launched was 3.2. The basic difference was from 3.2 and 3.0 was they included future dated requirements, and some of the requirement which was a baseline or industry best practices to be included in the assessment, they made it mandatory. So by when the PCI DSS 3.2 started, it was a clear mandate that whatever was the industry best practice and optional control, we have to make sure that that was also implemented. One of the major add-on into 3.2 was having an MFA whenever you are taking a remote account uh, of a PC or a system, and along with some specific risk assessment process was involved, and automated process of log monitoring was also included in that. Then then happens, I think after 3 years they started with PCI DSS 4.0, and that was also a major change, wherein they included a lot of new requirements, future dated requirements. They included targeted risk assessment, and then they also involved customized approach into the standard. One of the thing was when we used to do audit for PCI DSS 3.2, there was a lot of customers who had technology which was overpassing the control. So there was no option wherein we can showcase that the customer, the merchant, the service provider already have this control, and it surpasses the intent of the control which is written on the standard. So we have that has been actually improvised, and they have actually given the explanation and given the leverage to all the service provider, merchant, and auditor to use a customized approach as well. So, and then again, the 4.0.1 is there, and I think Pratik will be able to give you a more highlight on what exactly the 4.0.1 and 4.0 is all about.
Of course, but before we go ahead, we have a quick poll for our for all the members who have joined right now. Can we have the poll, please? So we just want to understand. I mean, we just understood the process of how the payment process takes place. We went through the whole cycle. The poll is to understand who ultimately authorizes the transaction. So please, let's have the maximum number of responses as much as possible. Okay, we have around 40% response. reaching at around 60%. We have 66% participants respond so far. I'll request all the participants to participate in this particular poll, please. All right, I think for now we'll just quickly share the results for the poll. So, the, Anil, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, sure, that's fine. As I mentioned that in the entire payment cycle, the payment is always approved by issuer bank. Issuer bank is a bank who actually gives you the card. So they will have the access to the details of your account, your credit information, your debit information. So they are the ultimate body responsible for approving the authorization.
Absolutely. So, issuer is the right answer with respect to this. Payment, brand, acquirer, merchant, they all facilitate in their own particular manner, but the authorization of any transaction would always be done by the issuer bank. We'll quickly move on to the next segment. So far we have talked about what is PCI DSS, what has been the timeline previously, what does it actually involve, and why does it even exist altogether. Now let's talk about the recent versions because there are a lot of changes that have been made. Before we go into 4.0.1, we need to understand that what exactly are the changes that have come into effect from 3.2 to 4.0, because that is exactly where the council has come up with various changes, specifically in the segment talking about, if you see on the screen as well. Previously, standard was created in such a way back in 2015 when whatever was the applicability that was created, and we talked about it, that PCI DSS is one of the compliance standard which is ever evolving. It usually comes up with the latest possible technologies and controls which are applicable to the payment card industry and keep on upgrading itself over a period of time. So for 3.2 and 4.0, if I talk about, there are a few major changes that they have come up with. Earlier, 3.2 used to have only basic level multi-factor authentication. They specifically talked about for admin and remote access only, that the basic level multi-factor authentication have to be enabled. Whereas 4.0 have come up with a very specific requirement for MFA. In this segment, they have come up with stricter MFA requirements, specifically calling out that whatever user who have access to critical data, whether it is even a view access, they need to have MFA enabled, and how exactly it needs to be enabled. Those points have also come up into the requirements now. One of the major changes again for 3.2 and 4.0 is the password uh, requirements. Now, so far, PCI DSS up till 3.2.1, they used to ask that minimum 8 characters should be there in a password, whosoever creates it. Now, with 4.0 and 4.0.1 that are into effect right now, they have come up with an evolving requirement that they are upgrading to the 12 characters. Minimum length of the password has to be 12 characters. And this is one of the changes that are equivalent for all the users, irrespective of their privilege that they have for the access. The third is phishing is one of the things that PCI DSS have specifically in 3.2.1 as well. They took a part of it for the training and making sure that all the people within the organization should be aware of phishing attacks. But in the recent version of 4.2 and 4.0.1, council have said and asked specifically and added a control talking about that phishing checks have to be performed at the time of assessment, wherein it does not mean that your email or mail server would be in scope of PCI DSS, but still the phishing campaigns and the phishing requirement have been included into it, that how exactly your organization is going through with it. The next we have so far council gave specific requirement and provided with a defined approach how to validate it, what it should involve, what needs to be checked, what needs to be implemented. Whereas they also had a compensating control. If you're not able to meet the requirement, you can create your own compensating control and you can have your specific control approved by the QSA as well at the time of assessment. With 4.0, council have given much more flexibility to the service providers and merchants who go through PCI DSS uh, audits. They have introduced a specific add-on of customized approach. Now, a customized approach is provided by with keeping in mind that there are new technology coming up every day. It is possible that some technology that is there as of this moment have to maybe even it surpasses the requirement. So, for an example, if a technology is in use which is much more in advance of the requirement and fulfills and go beyond that, a specific customized approach can be taken along with the defined approach and the compensating control. Uh, any specific pointers, please do feel free to drop a direct messages to host and co-host if there are any specific segments or any questions or queries, or you may raise your hand as well if you have that. We'll try to answer it as we go along. Okay, so moving on to the next point that we have is a compliance approach. So as of now, there were specific point in time compliances. So, for an example, the controls were defined in such a way that a specific check have to be performed quarterly, a specific check have to be performed at a period of 90 days. Whereas now there are requirements of continuous monitoring and compliances where regular in real time monitoring are in place and are expected by the organizations to have it in place so that they can go along as it goes ahead. The next is encryption. The encryption is one of the major points that security of PCI DSS revolves around. It talks about securing your data in transmit as well as at rest. But when we say encryption, there are n number of technologies that can be specifically used to secure the data. There is disk level encryption, there is column level encryption. There was a lot of new technologies that are coming up on a day-to-day scenario. Now the council has come up in the new standard of 4.2 and 4.0.1, calling out which all are specifically approved and are suggested to be used in this particular segment, wherein we talk about the encryption of data. Roles and responsibilities, again, one of the major changes. Uh, Roles and responsibilities have always been in the standard for 3.2.1 and 3.2, but in 4.0, they made it more extensive, wherein for each specific requirement, there has to be a role and responsibility called out, and specifically who's responsible for this particular requirement to be fulfilled within the organization for the entities that go for these particular segment, right? So I think we have a question. Anil, do you have that question? Just a second.
Yeah, the question is, can you explain customized approach with an example?
Okay. So as I said, see, customized approach is something that is, as I said, it's for the requirement. So defined approach says, let's say that MFA has to be enabled. For an example, I'm just taking a specific example. Now that MFA has to be enabled or logs have to be monitored regularly. Now for a logging of monitoring of logs, there has to be a daily log review that has to be performed. That is your defined approach that logs have to be reviewed. Whereas the customized approach also gives you the freedom if you have real-time behavioral analysis in place, then the customized approach is and you have some kind of a tool or some kind of a specific control which performs this, then it gets difficult to review it on a day-to-day basis, but you have real-time behavioral analysis. That is where the customized approach is being used. So it fulfills your defined approach and goes beyond, but does not specifically follow it to the word in a defined approach. In that case, customized approach is used to make sure that this segment has been made. So there can be n number of ways for most of the requirements they have provided with the customized approach, that how you can do it and how you can take it forward. I hope that answers the question. So yeah, as I was saying, the roles and responsibility has been specifically added into the segment, and there are very specific roles and responsibilities for each and every requirement throughout the standard now. Moving on to, so we wanted, Anil already have gone through this, but just a quick overview that, 4.0 was released in 2022. It is quite recent. I mean, it has just been completed 2 years in this year itself. But the council came up with a timeline specifically to make sure that there's a transition, smooth transition period for all the entities. It gives you an ample amount of time to fulfill your requirements, and the key goals for PCI DSS were very specifically defined by the council that we current continuously have to meet the payment industry and security needs of the payment industry. When I say security needs, as I said, technology is evolving by day. So specifically with technology, the controls also have to evolve. And that is why 4.0 has been created in such a way with customized approach and everything else in place, wherein we regularly evolve with the new requirements. It also promotes security as continuous process. There are specific requirements which talk about your continuous monitoring, your continuous reviews, checks, and other applicable controls as well. Also, they added flexibility for different methodologies. That is specifically, again, there is one specific segment which they have included as targeted risk analysis. Now, targeted risk analysis is one of the main components that are added as an add-on, which were not existing earlier for all these segments. Now, they also enhance validation methods. They came up with various specific validation methods for assessors, how we can validate whatever has been implemented. They came up with specific methodologies to be followed for and made it more rigorous in terms of checking and validating if the control is actually in place for an entity or not. Uh, as I said, the timeline for this has been defined. So PCI DSS 3.2.1 retired on 31st March of 2024, and currently we have PCI DSS 4.0, which is in effect and is working. Now the council has come up with 4.0.1 as well, which will come into effect from 1st January 2025. So that means that by 31st December 2024, PCI DSS 4.0 will stop existing. And then it will be only a single standard that will be in place. Moving on to overview of the PCI DSS requirement. So as I said, there were some major changes in from 3.2.1 to 4.0. Now, if you see, if you analyze this, I mean, earlier the objective were defined in a different way and requirement were defined in a different way. The requirements were using terminologies such as that firewall should be in place. Now the technology is evolving and it is not necessarily uh, clients are not necessarily using specific firewalls. There are much advanced versions of the scenario, being cloud environment as well, coming into the picture more and more by the day. So the terminologies have been defined in such a way that network security controls have been defined and so on and so forth. So just to give you an overview, the objective of the PCI DSS is to make sure, the first one, that you build and maintain a secure network and system so your environment is safe. It is not easily penetrable. It is not easily accessed by the unauthorized users. That's the first segment that PCI DSS talks about. And the first two requirements that fall under this particular objectives are created in such a way that it fulfills the requirement of the industry for access management, as well as making sure network security components that are there are fulfilling for it. The second segment is to protect account data. Now, protection of account data is something that is very specific because everything is evolving at the end of the day around it itself. We need to make sure that it is secure at rest, it is secure in transit. So, the encryption at rest and the encryption in transmission are the two major requirements that are created in this particular segment. Okay, I think I have one more question. I'll just take it at the end of this slide. Uh, so maintain a vulnerability management program basically calls about and revolves around this particular segment where we say that all specific systems which are inside the card data environment and are connected to the card data environment, it is secure from malicious attacks and are created in such a way, developed in such a way that it is a secure application, a secure hardware, as well as other aspects of it. So the development life cycle and maintenance of it also comes into this particular effect. The next objective that we have is to implement strong access control measures. In this particular segment, we talk about the access control for physical access as well as the logical access of the users and visitors to particular parameters and secured environments. We as PCI Council have specifically created controls around this, talking about how access is being managed for users, for admins, for various level of privileges, for visitors in physical security segment as well, and so on and so forth. Then a continuous requirement that comes in is under objective number 5, that is regularly monitor and test networks. It essentially talks about logging and monitoring of all the accesses that are there, all the activities that are happening. They have to be specifically logged and monitored on a day-to-day basis. So this specific objective has been fulfilled by requirement number 10 and 11 of the standard. The last and foremost objective is to make sure that every entity have an information security policy in place. Now, this information security policy is to be maintained, to be kept updated, and all over the process that are defined within the organization have to be documented and approved by the organization as well. This is again one of the more critical segment with respect to the documentation altogether for PCI DSS standard that is covered under your 12th requirement of the standard. I think I have a few questions. Anil, do you have them? Let me see.
Yeah, just a second. Yeah, one of the question we have received is uh, related to targeted analysis, targeted risk analysis. So it is targeted risk analysis means should we have to mitigate risk within the tentative date? what will be the scenario if we are taking services from third party? So in that case, should we transfer those risks or not?
Okay, so there are two segments. See, targeted risk analysis is something that is bifurcated into two segments. Now, by the PCI Council itself, the Council provides you with documentation on a quick reference guide for targeted risk analysis, as well as they provide you with a template to perform it. And they have taken it in very specific examples, wherein we talk about that targeted risk analysis is done in two ways. The first is if a review has to be performed and the frequency of that review has to be uh, evaluated in that particular way. That is one type of targeted risk analysis that are asked by the PCI Council. The second is if you use a customized approach. If you use a customized approach, you have to have a targeted risk analysis performed. So uh, if for specific examples, let's say if I take, let's say a review has to be performed for all the devices that are not uh, uh, affected by malware attacks. That's under the requirement 5, the requirement is there. So under that segment, we talk about that entities are provided with an option to perform a targeted risk analysis and come up with their own timelines that for after how much time they are going to perform a review of these specific assets to identify that if they are uh, still in the scope of excluding it from malware attacks or not. So that is how they have given a specific segment. Now, the question specifically is that targeted risk analysis means should we have to mitigate risk within a tentative date? Again, as I said, targeted risk analysis have to be performed in two segments. One, to define the timeline of your review, or if you have a specific customized approach in use, then and then only. It cannot be used to mitigate or come up with a timeline to resolve a risk. That's your
Right.
regular risk assessment. That's a different risk assessment that has to be performed. That's usually an organization wide or a process wide risk assessment that is performed. The continuation of the question is that what will be the scenario if we are taking services from third party? So that again, see, a third party, as I said, in case of a cloud environment, if you have a cloud service provider, you cannot perform a risk assessment. You cannot perform an assessment altogether over that. For that, you have to have your service provider's AOC to be showcased at the time of assessment to prove that they are PCI compliant. And we as an assessor also absorb that particular AOC in our assessment and make sure that you have a approved or you can say a compliant service provider. It does not have anything with respect to performing a targeted risk assessment. Okay, so that's one question. We have a few more questions. Will the cloud security groups or load balancers come under the purview of network security controls? See, cloud security groups and load balancers are a part of system component that are there. Now, again, if you have a cloud environment specifically defined and you're using that cloud environment for your storing, processing, or transmitting the data, the card data, if it is transmitting or storing, and these groups and load balancers are using it, are being used or absorbed in that environment, then yes, it will be covered under the assessment. Okay, there's another question. In case we have tied up with a fintech partner for card management and completed the PCI DSS assessment, and down the line in next 6 months we are going with another partner, then do we need to relook entire PCI DSS assessment, or we need to only look for delta part? Anil, would you like to take that question?
Yeah, sure, sure. So it's a great question. So basically, it depends on a lot of factors. So let's suppose you are taking a service from the fintech company, and they are doing your card management. Now it can be they are either personalizing or they are securing the card. So as such, it won't impact your environment. But yes, it's a very big change. Like you have, if they are providing you card data and you are taking the card data and you're protecting it in your own way, you can always do a assessment, a delta assessment, to see what impact it has on your environment when you the service provider is changed. But then the delta assessment can only give you the idea that whether it has a substantial impact, uh, or maybe once a new client or new service provider you are onboarding, if it provides you the sufficient level of security of cardholder data, then you can just have the delta assessment. But then in case if the fintech company is providing you card management services and they come up with their own software or application which you have to install within your environment, then in that case, since the that application itself is a very critical application and it will be the new scope for PCI DSS assessment, then in that case you'll have to go for the entire PCI DSS certification, including the application which is provided by the service provider.
Got it. All right, so I'll continue further on to the next slide. So for the introduction of 4.0.1, now, just recently 4.0 was released, and now Council has come up with 4.0.1 into effect. Specifically, it contains of various changes. We'll focus on that in just a while, but just to give you an overview, that 4.0.1 was released specifically to clarify a few doubts. Now, every time a new change is there, there are a few ambiguous parts that are left. 4.0 also have some specific segments where a few of the things were ambiguous. It was not quite clear as how it was supposed to be. So Council has come up with a clear and a better version for 4.0.1, which specifically talks about that how exactly it is supposed to be, and have made a few recent changes as well. We'll talk about the changes in just a while. But the overall was to just improve over the last version of 4.0. And as I said earlier as well, 3.2.1 is retired, 4.0.1 is now the current active version along with 4.0, and 4.0 will retire on 31st December 2024. So about the changes in PCI DSS, so with the recent versions, for 4.0.1, there are evolving requirements. Uh, Council has come up with a specific in version 4.0, they come up with some specific uh, time-based controls, which which is out loudly said as best practices for now, but would convert into a control as we go along in future. So the timelines were defined in such a way that by 31st March 2025, few of these best practices that they have called out in the uh, standard, that they will convert into the mandatory requirements, and that is one of the changes that are there in this particular segment. We also they also provided with some clarifications and guidance that how exactly it is to be added on some extra wordings and explanations that what exactly is the requirement, so that it is better suitably understood by the users at the entity level and as well as at the assessors level. They made a few changes in the structure and format as well to clear some doubts. They reorganized in such a way that they have added on some specific structure segments to give a better clarity, such as glossary has been added and other segments. We'll quickly go through over the summary of general changes that are there. Now, as I said, there are a few changes. So, typographical corrections have been made. Some errors were there with respect to specific formatting or headers were missing, they have been added for further clarification. They have updated the guidance in the standard, which talks about what should be there in detail along with just the requirement. And they have added a few extra quick reference guide as well, and the FAQs in over the PCI Council's website to provide with much more clarification. There are some streamlined definitions that have been created in Appendix G of the standard, that is your glossary now, which is specifically curated in such a way that wherever there are some segments which are not understood by the users, they can refer to the glossary and get some extra information and clarity about it. References been added in various fields. There are some terminology updates that have been made specific to sensitive authentication data and cardholder data, or just CDE being used as a terminology. They have clarified those segments so that they can be specifically called out as and when needed. They have also updated a few testing procedures for the assessors to align them with the requirements that have been changed, the wordings that have been changed, and make sure that the tests that are performed by the assessors, they are in line with that particular segment. Now, talking about apart from all the requirements that are there, they have also made some introductory changes, wherein one of the major changes is with respect to relations of other PCI standards, such as PADSS used to be a standard that was in effect, but now you have SSS in place, and that has to be taken over. So they have revamped those specific words to reflect the retirement of PADSs, that it does not exist anymore, and gives a bit more clarity that how and what exactly their requirements are in these sections. They have also made a specific change in the early introductory sections of scope, wherein the new subsection have been added talking about that is if cardholder data or sensitive authentication data is accidentally received, then how exactly it needs to be handled, what exactly it needs to be done. So they have been incorporated previously in 4.2.1, and now they have updated it into the introductory sections as well, if it is an applicability with respect to the same. So these are overall the basic and major changes that we have seen in the PCI DSS 4.0 to PCI DSS 4.0.1, wherein uh, we just saw that there are a few specific segments that have been changed a lot. There are a few segments that have been changed slightly, just a better clarity to the user, just a better understanding to the entities to make sure that they can easily accommodate to the requirements of the council. So these are the changes. Now let's talk about how exactly this PCI DSS certification journey actually works. This is a very specific requirement, and we need to understand it into the depths, that how exactly the PCI DSS certification journey works. If an entity wants to achieve it and has to achieve it, then what are the various steps they have to go through? The first step is to perform an scoping, where we identify that what exactly the scope is for an entity to for which the PCI DSS have to be there. Because PCI DSS is only specific to payment card industry, and it's not a general compliance organization wide standard. It only talks about only and only the segment which is related to payment card. It's not such as an ISO 27001 compliance, which revolves around the whole organization and various aspects of it. It talks about very specific segments, and therefore it needs to be specifically called out. And this scoping becomes a very critical aspect of it, that how do we perform it, right? From there onwards, we move on to the gap assessment, where we evaluate that what are the various gaps, what are the various segments, where the control requirement that we have for PCI DSS is being fulfilled or not, and in such a way. Then there is a remediation process for all the requirements that are there, how exactly the remediation has to be performed, making sure that we fulfill with the requirement of PCI DSS, and we go on to the final audit and reporting segment of it. Before we move ahead, I have a quick poll for all the users that we have in front of us. Can we have a poll, please? The poll is to get much more understanding of all the present participants, to make sure that what exactly is the further requirement so that we can align it better for all the users that we have. We would like to understand the interest for a detailed session on any of the topics that we have. It's PCI DSS fundamentals, PCI DSS 4.0 or 4.0.1, as we can plan it further in the future. We have approximately 55% participants responding to this so far. Uh, I think a few of the participants are taking some time to evaluate what next do they would they like to understand. All right, let's close the poll for now. We already have around 60% participants in place. All right, so we can see we around 50% people have asked for PCI DSS fundamentals, 35 people have asked for 4.0, and 70% people are interested in 4.0.1. So that's makes sense. Now, moving on to the next segment. Anil, would you like to take this over, please?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Pratik, for the insightful, detailed understanding of PCI DSS 4.0. I think we have discussed most of the thing. We have discussed PCI DSS fundamentals. What are the key components of PCI DSS? We have discussed about payment cycle. What are the key, you know, maybe entities or other components which are part of the payment process. Prateek has given the in-depth detail of the difference between 3.0 and 4.0, and then he briefed you guys about 4.0.1. So it's more of a understanding of the PCI DSS. The insights of PCI DSS has been provided. One of the key takeaway from this webinar is whoever has attended this webinar, we will be giving you the certificate of participation. That will be sent to you on your mail in a day or two. That will be coming from our admin team who are managing the entire webinar. After this, as we have taken the poll on the next last slide, we would be having a comprehensive workshop on PCI DSS 4.0.1. That it depends on the audience. That will be more of a exhaustive workshop wherein we will be indulging with the audience and we'll be giving them a lot of insights about each and every control which is there in the PCI DSS, and we'll be having a lot of case studies and brainstorming around the standard and a lot of clarities around the controls, because since it's a new standard and there are a lot of new requirements which has been made mandatory, we will have a lot of clarification around that. We'll also be having upcoming webinars, which will start from having a VAPT webinar wherein our instructor would provide you insights of the VAPT methodologies and how a VAPT can be done and how it is important for an organization that the VAPT needs to be done. Apart from that, we would also be covering another webinar in next upcoming months, which will be totally dependent on the data privacy and including the various data privacy framework and standards available globally and how to meet them. So these are some of the upcoming events which we have. We would be posting it to you. You'll be having update from our team for all the upcoming webinars, and we would appreciate if you can be part of those webinars and provide your insights as well. So with that, I think we have finished up with the entire presentation and webinar. Uh, in case you have any query which you were not able to ask during the session, you can directly reach out to us. We have given our email IDs. You can note it down. From if you have any sales query or if you require any kind of assistant from our side, you can reach out to the sales team. And any questions you have, you can mark it to info@cybercube.co.in or directly to me or Prati. We'll be more than happy to help you out and clarify those questions. If you have any query related to the webinar as of now or any specific query in terms of PCI DSS, we are now open for Q&A and we can take it up. Yeah, we have unmuted everyone. If someone has any query, we can take that. Or I think we can if we don't have any query, we can wind up the session. Also, after this webinar, you'll be getting a feedback mail from our team. We would really appreciate and uh, we would want a feedback from your end so that we can improve on the webinars and any other thing which in terms of content or maybe the questions we would like to have the feedback.
Also, we will be sending out a feedback mail for detail and everything. And if anybody, if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute and ask. You can ask it right away. Maybe you couldn't ask while during the session. Now we are here for the Q&A so that we can resolve all your queries. If you have any, anybody, please. Well, I think that went well. Nobody have any queries, so that's uh, that's all right. So fair enough. Thank you everyone for joining in, and thank you for providing your time and interest. It was, I hope it was insightful to you guys and making sure that we provide you with further coming up sessions as well as we go ahead. And thank you again for joining in.
Sure. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for your time and have a good day ahead.
All right, guys. Thank you. Take care. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Good day. Bye bye.